In this lecture on ethics, I would like to combine practices of ethical regulation with different visions on ethics. So, how do we deal with ethics in science? Well, in general, there are three different models. The first model is we do our research, we write a book or we write a paper or we publish somewhere something about it, and we have our peers reading it and then discussing it and discuss about whether it's ethically sound or not. The second model is that we have codes of conduct or laws or regulations, and we have to read, and sometimes we have to sign them beforehand when taking on a job at university or at a research agency. You sometimes have to sign it, or often you have to sign it. And then the third model is the model of the Institutional Review Board, in which a board checks your research on the basis of your research proposal before you're doing this study. And how does it work? Well, in this case, in the first case, it's all the research responsibility, because the researcher has to do the research, ethically sound, and then peers are reviewing it afterwards. In the second version, we have the codes of conduct. Those are written regulation as well as peer reviews after publication. So there are two ways of dealing with regulating ethics. Now, the third model is the most complete model, because we have the peer review, we have the written regulation, as well as an official agreement beforehand by a special board. Now, these different models relate to different visions on ethics. And Alan Bryman uses 5 different visions on ethics, and I will discuss 4, because one I discussed in another lecture. Now, the first I would like to discuss is universalism. In universalism, we agree that we simply need rules that we need to stick with. And we can't break these rules just in order to do our own research. The second vision Bryman distinguishes is situational ethics or situation ethics, which means you have to look at ethics on a case-by-case basis. So every time you deal with participants, informants, or when you're doing observation, you have to think about, is this ethically sound or not? And can I do some deception or not? Why can I? Why can't I? And he distinguishes 2 sub-versions of this. And then the first version is the end justifies the means, which means that sometimes you simply need to be the donkey's ass, as government called it. You have to act more stupid than you are in order to get some information. And then the end justifies the means. The second subversion is you simply have no choice. You have to use some deception in order to do your research and get to some knowledge. So these are pretty much on a case-to-case basis. Now, the third version is ethical transgression is pervasive. We simply lie throughout the day. So in research, we also lie. So it's everywhere. So why not in research? Well, it is in research. And we use deception every time when we use a little white lie. And we also use white lies in research. And the fourth vision is anything goes, which means anything goes as long as it's scientifically okay, as long as your peers after your research would agree with you. Well, that might be an issue. And you can imagine that there's a huge range of discussion going on about this. What should we do? What model should we follow? And the last few years we've been going to more and more these IRBs. And in another lecture I will talk about these IRBs, Institutional Review Boards.